What's up, everyone? Happy Monday, at least in Australia, if you're watching in Australia. Today we have a very special show. We've got a special guest, good friend of Phil. His name is Tom, and he is a highly competitive runner and a podiatrist. So we're going to give you the scoop on all things running. Stick around. Morning, everyone. In case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. I'm one of the co-founders of Unity Gym and co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into strong and flexible athletes. If you want to know how we do it, grab one of our blueprints, the flexibility blueprint, the strength blueprint, or the nutrition blueprint. There's a link in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube or on the podcast or wherever it is that you're watching. And come over and join our private Facebook group, the UMS Movement Mastermind, where we record these podcasts live and we interact with our audience. If anybody's watching live, give us a little comment. Let us know where you're watching from so we can say g'day. And how are you, Tom?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show, man.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thanks for coming on.
No.
Yeah, this is really exciting for me because, like, obviously we usually do Physio Monday and I was like ready for a whole barrage of like very specific sort of foot and running related questions after what we talked about last week, and I was like, ooh, this is a good time to call in a favor from Tom, and so lucky Tom works just around the corner in his own sports podiatry clinic, and
how good is this?
Mate,
yeah.
So dream. So everyone out there who has any foot or running related injuries, definitely get your questions in. And remember, this is general advice. We haven't done a consultation with you, so use this as questions to ask the people you're working with, or if you're not in America, you can do online consultations with me. Actually,
sure.
Have you done telehealth since COVID?
I'm doing it now.
Mate,
yeah.
Well, we'll put the link in the description about how to get in contact with Tom as well.
Yeah, rock on.
And this is an exciting one for me because with physio, it's often people sort of think that, you know everything about everything, and that's like you kind of wish it was true. Like, you wish it was true, but like at university, like you kind of get a 2-week block on foot related stuff, which means like basically a few hours of lectures, and they're like, here is everything. It's really complicated. Refer to a podiatrist. So unless you take a really particular passion in and like point of interest into like feet and hands, I would always see a hand therapist or a podiatrist over a physio, unless they're like very much kind of committed to like working particularly with feet. I'm always very happy to refer on, but when I saw podiatrists when I was younger, often they would kind of get me in, put plaster on my feet, send my give the very expensive bill to my parents to give me orthotics, and then that on repeat. And it wasn't until I found Tom where I was just like, wow, this is what podiatry can be, and like this is a whole nother thing. Like it was just so different from my previous experience. So make sure if you're asking a podiatrist, see someone like Tom.
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, no, I just think podiatry has evolved, I think, over the years, and it's becoming. It used to be, I think, more just about literally trying to stabilize the foot via the use of orthotics, and that was almost you'd see a podiatrist for. And I don't like that now. Like, I like people to come in thinking I could be getting any treatment, any advice. It's not just about orthotics. So.
Yeah. It's unreal. And I was at the Sports Medicine Australia conference last year, presenting my little research paper. And Tom was there with this like cohort of like hardcore sports podiatrists who would just bring like getting all that same sort of information that's now leading physio and sports doctors and everyone about like active approaches to rehab and injury prevention. It was like so cool to see that part of it. And you even are you working to run like a kind of subsection of podiatrists? Is that right?
Yeah. So actually,
association.
I'm on the board of the Sports Podiatry Association, and actually recently we just went through a rebranding project, which is sort of for that whole point of getting better perception of who we are and what we do. So we're now called Sports and Exercise Podiatry Australia.
Awesome. Love that.
And so, exercise prescription is a big
And so
part.
Is that a good way that people can find the right kind of podiatrist if they go through that particular association, and they'll be directed towards that?
That's right.
So if you do have any... if you do want to see a podiatrist after being, after this chat, definitely go through that portal. We'll put a link to that as well.
And why would someone, because I'll be honest, I know what a podiatrist is, or at least I know the general understanding of what a podiatrist is, but why would someone see a podiatrist? What would be the reasons? And if we relate it to running, like if you're a runner, what would be a reason to go and see a podiatrist for?
Often it's it's for running in general. The overuse, it's more likely to get overuse type injuries, like this slow insidious onset type injury. That's certainly a good place. I think I certainly see less acute traumatic injuries. I think physios are much better placed, even if it's lower limb, probably to deal with those acute injuries. So I think, I really personally, from my perspective, I see lots of runners. I think any runner that's injured through running, you could potentially see a podiatrist, a sports podiatrist that sees lots of runners as much as you'd see a physio. And just
before we go on, I meant to do a bit of a blow about who Tom is and why he's a particularly good person to see with running injuries, because with every health profession, I always try and see someone who does the thing that I am training for or want to be doing. Or if you see a GP, seeing a healthy GP, someone who kind of lives and breathes their industry and their profession. And Tom is that to the top degree.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I can't stand when I've a really good example of this.
I was about to do his whole blurb where he's all his accolades and that. So just quickly, while people are still paying attention, so Tom has won most of the things in most of the distances. So with running, he's won the 6-foot track ultramarathon, which is a off-road thing, and then came to road running, and on his debut marathon won the Melbourne Marathon, which is not a bad debut performance there. So took the Australian running community a bit by surprise there, I think.
Won the Melbourne Marathon. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Oh. And then second in the City Surf, which is one of the biggest runs in the world. And I was, mate, your 5K time the other day, that blew my mind. So he just did a 5K time trial in 14 minutes 12. And I remember when I was doing a triathlon, I was so stoked to get a sub 4-minute K. And this guy's punching out sub 3-minute Ks, and it just breaks my brain to think about how you run that fast. I think I'm kind of fit, and then you hear that, oh my God.
Well, I'm not great at running at all, and I've never done any running training, but in the military we had to do regular running tests for 2.4 Ks. When I started, and I was 30 when I joined with no previous running experience, I was struggling to get under 11 minutes 10, which was the standard, I think the first one I did. But then the second one I did it when my fitness had increased, I immediately dropped down to about 10 minutes. But I think my best time was 9 minutes 30. And when I got under 10 minutes, I was so stoked. So that was for 2.4 Ks. So 14 minutes for more than double that distance. That's impressive.
Then, Tom also went to the, what year was the World Championships for the half marathon?
2018.
And that was, you got a 105-ish?
104.18.
104.18, insane for a half marathon. Yeah. And then your was that marathon in Japan was your PB for the marathon as well?
Yeah, Fukuoka, yeah. And
that was 2 hours 14?
2:14, yeah.
So, over, often with runners, they really specialize into a kind of one distance, but your times over all of these distances just blow my mind. And off-road, amazing. So,
the point of all of that, which feel this is the same reason why I love having Phil on the show and having Phil at the gym, is because it's really important to all of us that we work with practitioners that have got what we call skin in the game. I don't I've been to a lot of doctors where they give you health advice and they're morbidly obese, and I think, man, are you kidding me? You're trying to tell me how I should eat? And so I think it's a really good thing to be able to go and see somebody like Tom if you are suffering from any running issues, because you're not just dealing with somebody that's got all the training to deal with it, but you're dealing with somebody that lives it.
And someone who's made the mistakes, learned from them, and then overcome them. And that's one thing that I think, you could definitely attest to is, and seeing, how your running career started. It wasn't a smooth run where you just, So, just quickly before we do get into some of the questions, thanks Diane for.
We're going to say again quickly, if anybody's got any questions to do with running related injuries, put them in now. You'll never get a better answer than you are today. So I can see we've got a lot of people on the live stream. Get your questions in. Yeah.
So just quickly, maybe a quick little journey through your start in competitive running and how that kind of.
Yeah. So I started in school. Probably wasn't until maybe year 9 or 10 at school I sort of got into it. I think I was doing well in the fitness tests in PE, so they urged me to join the track and field and the cross country, and I did, and it didn't take long before I realised I really enjoyed it, had a bit of a knack for it. And so from there, it just took off. I joined a club outside of school, had a squad, and I've pretty much just been running ever since. And it's just like my lifestyle now. I just really enjoy it.
Yeah. It seems to me like it's kind of been the last 3 years maybe that you've really started to hit certain peak levels that
Yeah.
And how old are you now, Tom? So
34.
34. So it seems kind of like later than maybe.
Yeah.
Like, and so you're saying in your 20s there was a lot of injuries there that sort of slowed you down, and
there was lots of things. Yeah, I guess like early 20s, there was like uni days, and there was a bit of traveling in there. Yeah. There was injuries. There was a bit of a cycle of other priorities along with injuries, and so I think now with young family, a stable business, and getting into a routine, and also just like you said before, learning from many mistakes that I've had over the years. I've been able to put together consistent training, and that's the key, and that's what anyone that knows what they're talking about with running and improving their running. It's all about consistency. That's what you need if you want to do well at running.
Which is same message for the gym is like often you just have to take a little bit off, but keep consistent, and you'll just like overtake anyone who.
It's quite amazing how that seems to be coming up over and over and over for us with people at the top of their field in really different areas. Yeah. That often less is the answer to getting greater results, I think when we're in our younger years, we just equate that more effort, going harder, pushing through the pain is what's going to deliver those results, and recovery is such a critical part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Definitely. And so last week we sort of talked through, how often people sort of make the mistake of just like only kind of measuring distance as or time as their sort of variable, and how we can kind of adapt, programming and just like strength principles where you have sets, reps, different levels of weight. Like programming is kind of key, and so we covered that I think fairly well last week. But one of the things that did come up a few times was people asking about shoes and orthotics, and I thought, this is definitely one to get Tom on board for, because I think often people sort of get a bit of a mental block in their head about starting running because they not feel like they're quite prepared, or running. They go to a running shoe store and they find that like, oh geez, that pair of shoes is $260, and I know I need like anti-pronation, blah blah. And so I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on, just for a beginner getting into running, like what are the kind of key first steps, and what kind of level do you need, and does the shoes and orthotics make a big difference?
Most people, it's really just the running shoes. Orthotics don't really come into it, I don't think, unless someone's actually got an injury. So coming into, there's obviously cases, but that's in the general sense, it's really just the footwear. It's important that people don't get too caught up on footwear. I think I love shoes. I love running shoes, and I love talking about running shoes, and they're fun they make running more fun. But like you mentioned, the key aspect is your programming and your load management. And so obviously shoes are important. That's the one piece of equipment that you really kind of definitely need for running. It's just something you don't want to overcomplicate. You want to just wear something that ideally is comfortable, that feels pretty natural, and that you feel like you would enjoy running in. And I would suggest as well, if you've been like walking in a running shoe, or have a use of like your casual shoes, or certain like if it's flat or whether it has a bit of a pitch to it, casually you may want to incorporate those design features in your running shoes. So if you're someone that always wears high heels, say to work every day, I would be cautious in wearing a running shoe that was, say, zero drop, which was a bit of a buzzword.
For those playing at home, zero drop means basically like, imagine wearing like a pair of Converse. They don't have any sort of change in the level of theirs.
So maybe an easy transition, if you're used to having a bit of a heel elevation casually getting around in your running, you may want to stick with something somewhat similar, and that be the starting point. And then over time, if you, for whatever reason, you wanted to get a little bit more, your foot involved a little bit more, which you can with zero drop, you would do that gradually. So then you would sort of move to that over time if you wanted to.
Yeah, so many of the same kind of core messages, like we didn't talk about load management before the show started, but like a lot of the same sort of terminology is coming up to everything we say.
What do you think about barefoot running?
I see it as a tool. Someone like myself, I kind of laugh at the idea of running all of my running barefoot. It would seem ludicrous because it would be painful. Yeah. And the terrain I'm running on road, I'm running like 160 kilometers a week.
There's so many kilometers.
Yeah.
But I still use it. I probably use it once or twice a week, just doing some run throughs, like strides on grass. Yep. Some people do it more. I think it is a great tool for people to use. It will engage your foot more, the muscles in the feet more. You can allow full toe splay. Like, it's fantastic for the feet, but again, it's just got to be something that's incorporated gradually so people can adapt to it. Because all too often I'll see people that have gone down that route much too fast and they've developed a foot and ankle injury.
Yep.
And so then I'm so we'll go back the other way. We're like, okay, well, let's stabilize you. Let's support it, but then let's just talk about. I wouldn't be doing my job if I just said, oh, you got a foot injury, wear an orthotic, now you got to wear like Asics Keanu for the rest of your running life. I got to delve into why they did that, why they got injured, and a lot of the time it's just down to their delve into their habits of what they did. So they like we said, did a little bit too much too soon barefoot or in that minimal type of shoe.
I love
100%.
that.
It's exactly the same principles. Hopefully everyone's kind of getting is you just got to take these the body adapts, but you need to give it time and any big changes. So I love how you even bring the lifestyle, like what shoes do you wear, to work, what shoes do you wear the most part of your day, and then you've got, if you want to start running, you need to kind of match that up. And if you don't know how to do that yourself, definitely try and work with someone to kind of get that right, because it just makes such a huge difference.
It's amazing because it's the same thing that I experienced being a trainer, where people come in and they think that they know how to train at a gym, and they come here and spend a week and they realize they didn't really know much at all. And I'm realizing that that's like me with running. I didn't know any of this stuff about running because I'm not a runner and I've never looked into it, and I've never programmed for running. And anytime I have run, it's just been, oh, where are we going to run? Let's just run here. And I guess in a way it's almost been lucky that I haven't had any worse injuries than I've had. But I guess that's also because the volume that I did was always very, very low. But having this talk last week, Phil, and now having you on the show, I'm realizing more and more that running is there's a lot to it. Hearing you say that barefoot running, because I really didn't know what you were going to say. I didn't know if you were going to slam barefoot running or if you were going to be all for it. I was really curious to hear your input, and to hear you say, I like it as a tool. That's really, really cool, because it's the same kind of answers that we give to people when somebody says, oh, what do you think of split squats? Or, I say, they're great as a part of what you do,
Exactly. And
so
people kind of get,
really
people kind of, I think with barefoot running particularly, I fell into it after reading Born to Run. It becomes this very binary, I need to adopt this as an identity. And I think with all sort of training, you've just got to take the good elements and see where it fits in. I love that idea of using it as a tool. And I think for our audience here, pretty much everyone in the gym trains barefoot most of the time, and a lot of people who are on the online program as well, I know, training at home will train in barefoot as well. And that's so for people like that, they'd probably be a bit quicker to incorporate a little bit more. But certainly if you're doing it, start on grass, do less than you think, listen to your body the next couple of days, and then bring it in. But I like that. It's all about building up your foot muscle tolerance, and that.
That's definitely a starting point. If someone's thinking about running barefoot, they better be walking barefoot first. Or doing their gym and other stuff barefoot first.
That should be a light globe moment for a lot of you. Really listen to what Tom said there. That's a message that we were trying to beat home last week. Is that last week we were talking about running for fat loss, and what people that are carrying an extra 20 kilos, would want to consider. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make like that is they go from zero to hero in one step, and they just go, I'm going to start running, and they try and run 5Ks, and try and do that 3 or 4 times a week. And you see it a lot. You see people out on the street carrying a lot of extra weight, and their running technique's terrible, and you can see them just banging on the ground, and you think, oh, I hope you're not doing that too often.
So we get into, actually, just before I did, I'm just fascinated that you run 160 Ks a week. That blows my mind. And yes. How
many days a week do you run to get that
every day?
Every day. And 7 days?
Yeah, and probably about 3 or 4 of those days it's double. So I'm running two times in the day.
So because we talked a lot about last week about how you don't want to be doing the same thing for all of your running sessions. Just like in the gym, we split it up so that you're working different energy systems, working different parts of your body. So I'm really interested to hear, with that much volume, what does the kind of week look like in a fairly succinct sort of way?
So I think I think anyone that's running more than, certainly more than 30 to 40K a week, up to whatever I'm running or more, you kind of want to polarize your training. So polarizing is basically having a lot of or you're having a percentage of easy running and a percentage of higher intensity running. And yeah, after about, I'd say once you get up to around 30 to 40K a week, you want to polarize in the ratio of about 80% easy, aerobic, low intensity, and only 20% of higher intensity.
That's
so
80-20.
80-20, the 80-20 rule. So
always love that.
Yeah, so that's how I break it up. So yeah, for me that just means most days I'm doing easy running. So a lot of that, what I do to get that in is as I run to and from work, just run commute.
Yep, he'd turn up here and
Had my little running backpack. But then,
and how many Ks is that for you?
So it's 12K one way.
12K. So for those of you over in the States, about that's about 7 miles.
Around that seven
Yeah,
something.
about 7.5 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, just under a city to surf each way.
Yep.
Like
Wow.
14K.
And where do you live? What suburb?
Gladesville.
Yeah, right. I'm
And
trying to
Sydney-
visualise.
It's a bit hilly. It's a bit hilly.
It's a bit hilly.
No,
yeah,
no
it's
part
a
of
bit
Sydney is
hilly.
flat, so yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Sydney is a very hilly city.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Solid.
Yeah, just so good to get that kind of insight, and I'm very glad it fits with what we said last week. So yeah,
Yeah.
You
for
brought that
sure.
up.
yeah, we're just talking about people just think like, I just want to beat my 5K every time, and then they go out there and just try and beat their 5K every time, and that is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
So we've got a few questions here, and before we do run out of time, it would be great to get into some of the comments. So good day to Diane. She's saying, my daughter has a natural ability for running and would like to follow a running program, but she has a bent tibia. Her inside and outside ankle bones are in alignment rather than offset. Any attempt to increase volume or frequency results in pain/shin splints. Would orthotics overcome this, and is this the only option? So again, Diane, remember this is just general comments to help you inform your decisions. So obviously Tom hasn't seen your daughter, but what do you think?
She mentioned, so hi Diane. She's mentioning, you're mentioning structural things. So if you're concerned about that sort of stuff, then obviously I think it'd be at least worth an assessment. So it's hard for me to judge the extent of how that would impact ability to handle running load. So we need to assess that alongside with a thorough history of attempts at running and how that's been tried to be achieved. So whether there is still an instance of maybe trying to increase the volume or the intensity a bit too much.
Yeah. And knowing how old your daughter would be also pretty good, because that's pretty key. And
orthotics certainly could help, but it's just one of those things where I couldn't say yes or no. It could be a short-term tool, could be a long-term, depending on how bad or how I guess how that
significant
structural or biomechanical aspect is filtering into pain.
Yeah, because so many people have like things that are structurally different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be inhibited in any particular way. And the active structures in you, like there are so many active structures in the foot that are amazing at doing dynamic control, and people really underestimate that because we just put our feet in like clunky shoes where those structures can kind of go to sleep a lot of the times, especially if your kid's in school still, like wearing your kind of classic old school like clunky leather shoes. Like if she's just going from that and then going for a run every once every couple of weeks and then hurts herself, there'd be a lot of work you could probably do to
definitely
strengthen stuff up.
Yeah, awesome. So
and just on that, she also brought up with the shin splints. That's obviously one that comes up a lot, and we had a brief discussion on shin splints and the different types. But that seems to be that was something that you struggled with in the army. And
I didn't struggle with it, but I developed it, and it was undiagnosed. But it was such a common thing that the PTs and the medics in the army used to describe the symptoms, and it was it was very acute pain down the medial side of my tibia, and just got really bad when I was running, but it happened over a period of a month or two, and it got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go to the medics for this. And then I got 3 weeks leave, and I did no running, and then I came back and I never got it again.
And we were talking last week how I hate the word splints, like shin splints, because it just puts like an image in people's mind. And so now it's medial tibial stress syndrome, which is exactly as you pointed in the inside there. That's a really common sort of presentation. But your thoughts on shin splints? I imagine a lot of people would come and see you for... I mean, that's a really broad thing to ask. What are your thoughts on shin splints?
I'm just trying to process.
Maybe the better question would be plan of attack.
And what's the kind of mistake that develops shin splints for people?
So I do filter out, again, I'm going to keep going back to it. So the training load, and I do try to delve into their habits with intensity. So a lot of the time, shin splints, much like other foot and ankle issues, are a consequence of too much intensity. So with some comes in with shin splints. I'm definitely first port of call. I'm just looking into their volume, but specifically how much of that is intense, how fast have they just started doing interval training? Because shin splints are so common with people that have just started like a 12-week program for an event, and they've never done intervals before, and they just start doing they're doing intervals on top of more volume than they're normally doing. And so when you try and run fast, you're a little bit more up on the forefoot, and when you're up more on the forefoot, you use your calves and specifically your soleus more, the deep sort of flat calf muscle, and that's going to be pulling on the lining of the bone, which will create that medial shin pain. So first protocol is that it's just I'm gonna dial back their intensity. They can probably maintain some easy miles while they still have that injury, as long as they're running at low intensity, and then we'll work on either reducing load via footwear, or increasing capacity via strength and conditioning, which
and
probably
do you
do both.
like technique intervention at all, or
so there is some evidence that a slower cadence can increase your risk of developing medial tibial stress. So if they've got if they take like long lopey strides, which essentially will give them a slow or low cadence. So the cadence is just steps per minute. I would give them advice on increasing that. So whatever they're doing, I may say, let's bump that up 5 to 10% of what you're doing.
Yeah. And so that might be a bit counterintuitive for some people, being like, more steps equals like better. That's more loading, surely. But if you're taking if you're putting reducing load on each thing, then because we often talk about kind of exceeding, like your structures have a certain capacity, and if you exceed that capacity, that's often where you start to get injury. So by taking a higher cadence, this is something that really helped me, and when I was working with my running coach, was using a metronome, changing my cadence, and like that forced me to take shorter strides, which then end up I never got a hamstring problem again with running, because it just tightened everything up and took a lot less load per step. So it's a really good example of how with load management it can be a total like macro programming and looking at intensity and distance and speed, but also there's that kind of micro loading in how you're doing it, and that can also be impacted by the shoes you're wearing and orthotics. So it's important to try working with someone who can identify which part of the puzzle is missing. And the other thing that I'm really stoked that you're talking about is you always look back at what people have just done, and that's something we talk a lot about here, is why it's so important to track your training and measure what you're doing, because it's just useful for yourself to for motivation to track your development. But what it's excellent for is troubleshooting when something goes wrong and being like, okay, what's changed? Like, why did this, especially if it's an insidious onset, not a traumatic injury, what was the thing that caused it? So
something that I don't want to brush over, that I just want to highlight, that Tom said when he was getting that out, is how he would deal with shin splints is strength and conditioning, and
not stopping. Not stopping was just one of the things that I was like, ooh.
Not going, I've got this, I'm just going to stop and hope that it goes away. But identifying issues, managing load, attacking it from a more intelligent perspective, and incorporating things like strength and conditioning. So and above all, guys, if you've got issues like this that are coming back for you, see somebody that knows more than you do about it, and get their help. Don't do what so many people do, which is think that they can just magically rest, do nothing, and then come back to the thing that hurt them and have a different result than they got the first time. Unfortunately, the body doesn't work that way.
And so one thing that we were talking about before is evolved in your training is adding a bit more strength and conditioning recently. And so last 3 years has been...
last 3 years I've incorporated it. I've found it's one of those things I've wanted to do for a long time, but it's like, can I go for another run? Or so I've decided to cut. Just relax, Tom. Stop running so much.
I feel like when you're doing 160 k's a week, you could probably.
No, it's one of the best things I've done, honestly. So as you mentioned before, I think I had a bit of a injury history, recurrent injuries, and I think incorporating strength and conditioning has certainly made me more resilient. I feel more resilient. It feels good. To me, it's supplementary as well. It's a different type of stimulus to my body.
Different.
It just feels. It just feels great. Like I feel like it's good for my hormones. Like I feel like I have more energy after doing it, as opposed to like another run. It's just kind of gets a little bit fatiguing. Whereas this kind
depleting,
of it's just I'll be doing it ongoing now, for sure.
And so what does your strength program look like? Just so one session a week and lower body focused?
Yeah, so at the moment it's just it's pretty much just once a week when I can get it back fit it in my program. I'll be going back to twice a week, which I was doing for quite a while. And it's basically, I struggle for motivation, and also I've got a couple of young kids at home, so doing stuff at home is difficult. So I will go to a strength and conditioning coach of mine who's a runner. He helps me with it. So I go to the gym, and we do an hour of we would start with mobility work, moving into some activation work, then do a bit of like plyometrics, so sort of like a bit of bounding and that sort of stuff, working on energy storage of the tendons, and then we're going some heavy lifting, and I love that. I enjoy the heavy lifting side of it.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
Awesome. Nice, that sounds great.
Yeah, and so
who are you working with?
his name's Dave Costello. He's in Neutral Bay. Yeah.
I've heard the name before, but maybe I'm thinking of Robert D. Costello.
Yeah, maybe not the same runner.
Anyone from overseas that doesn't know, he was a Olympic runner.
Yeah,
he's
back in the
80s.
Yeah, 80s. He won I think it was the 82 Commonwealth Games.
Yep. And he was all over the Weet-Bix ads and everything.
Yeah, he was,
wasn't he? He was
wasn't
a
he?
big face in Australia.
And then, really like awesome to hear that programming, because it's just so like ticks all the boxes. Like it's like getting a bit of that mobility in there, like preparing your tendons in a like graded sort of way that's building up the capacity, and then I love that you're getting into the heavy stuff. That's exciting to hear. And you were saying just before we started, when we had a chat, that like upper body mobility has been a thing that you're working on as well. Yeah. So I've had I think it's I'll probably blame my kids on this, like I blame them for a lot of things, but just like carrying and my back, I'm just getting to this probably my work posture as well, with these shoulders sort of going forward, like I'm sitting right now with my shoulders forward. Yeah. So working on just stretching through anterior and just strengthening and working on back and extension. Yeah,
and it's made a big difference. I just feel, although my posture hasn't changed, I don't think it's changed that much. It just feels better. Yeah, I mean, all of a large part of the audience we have are total mobility heads, and like that's often just the most satisfying stretch is just undoing some. I do before I run. Every time I'm just doing this with the hands behind the back and just stretching like this. It's just opening up the chest.
We usually wrap up about now, but we did plan to go just a little bit over time. So just quickly, like I'm really glad you talked about your strength split. We've got Simon here who's asked another question. Is it a question or a comment?
I think it's a comment.
Yeah.
He's saying, back in the day, 1989, I was training for the Commandos and developed shin splints running on footpaths. I would stop to stretch when it got tight. We had to do 5-kilometre run with webbing on in 12 minutes, meaning...
what's webbing? Is that like...
So that's the stuff that you wear that carries all your ammunition and your water and everything. He's saying it might have been a bit longer. 5Ks in 12 minutes with webbing.
Ouch.
I don't know many people that could do
world
that.
record.
That'd be a world record. Yeah, I think it would have been a little bit longer than that, because Tom, who is a very competitive runner, is saying that he just did 5Ks in 14 minutes without webbing. Yeah. So I think because he's said a little bit lower here, I'm not sure about it. Could have the time. It could have been a bit longer.
Yeah,
I reckon it would have been a little bit longer.
Yeah,
than that.
and so it's just interesting to highlight there. So he's saying back in the day, you'd stop and do some stretching, and like that's one of my pet peeves is people thinking that stretching has some magical therapeutic quality that revitalizes things and turns it into a more resilient structure. Really, muscles tighten up because they exceed the capacity and they spasm to protect. So, I think it's interesting listening to how Tom's explained how to manage shin splints. Stretching doesn't really feature because it is all about exposing your body to the stimulus in a graded sort of way.
Yeah.
So let's answer Blakely's question real quick, because I'm sure that this is a quick answer. Blakely's asked best resource for learning good form with running. Any books you can think of? Any videos? Any YouTube channels to watch?
You kind of stumped me on that. I would say just seeing a good coach, like getting a lot of experienced coaches that have coached a lot of runners over the years will be quite helpful in providing some technique feedback. I'm just a bit cautious and
it's great to work with someone locally who can look at what you're doing, because everyone does different sort of things and works. There
are some like technique coaches I think are a little bit too cookbook, and it's you just got to be careful with. Everyone's got quite unique for example, some people suggest there's a I've had a few people come in lately following a program that says that they should be running 180 steps per minute. Everyone should be running that specific cadence, which is a technique cue that's not based on any evidence.
All the rage 5 years ago, though. It
was all the rage, but everyone's unique. Limb length differences, tightness restrictions, the pace you're running at. Like there's certainly no ideal cadence, and there's no ideal foot strike. That's the other one, which I see a lot of. Like everyone should be landing on their forefoot. Which is not correct. It's pretty much there's other cues that are more important to be focusing on than those sort of those sorts of things.
And do you have any like generalized cues that people could consider when starting out to try something a bit different from what they've usually done? Or?
The main thing is just thinking about cadence. So it is just thinking about maintaining a nice quick stride length. I've had some people come in that they said, I thought to run you're supposed to try and take a really long stride length. That's supposed to be better. So if there is anyone listening that potentially thinks that, it's definitely not the case. You don't want to be certainly not forcing a long stride length, let alone just running whatever you think's okay and having a long stride length.
Like get a metronome app on your phone and play try out what it feels like to go between 150 and 180 and
somewhere between that range,
and just try a few different ones and match it and see what starts to feel natural and what starts to feel nice. And if you when I started transitioning, I used to be a very lopey runner, and I was the biggest cue was to try and pick up my cadence, but it felt so unnatural to go from what I was doing to trying out 180, for example. And so the advice I got was start running at a slightly higher cadence and then just bring it up a little bit each time. So again, it's all about that kind of slower transition, exposing your body to something gradually.
Yep, cool. Let's answer Yanni's question.
Yanni, who's sick at home today, sad he couldn't be in for the full table. We haven't had a 4 people on since the new table set up. So.
Yeah, we haven't, have we?
No.
What a shame.
Yanni's
let
so
the team down. No, I'm just joking. Look, this is what happens when you got kids in daycare. They bring home every little virus that goes around.
I'm sure Tom can relate to.
So Tom, Yanni is saying he'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions for anyone starting a running program for fat loss if they're overweight. So any considerations that you would want to share about that? So somebody's 20 kilos overweight, they're not a runner at all, and they're saying, hey Tom, sitting around a barbecue, I'm going to start running next week to lose fat. What do you think I should do?
Follow it, have a plan. So don't just run ad hoc. You got to have a plan, and it's got to be very gradual. And I would focus on, if they're not running before and they're overweight, it's very unlikely they're going to be able to just run continuously. So I would suggest it's going to be walk running for quite a long time to get used to the running load and adapt to it. So it might be 1 minute of running for every 4 minutes of walking, for example, for half an hour, and just build that running exposure more gradually than you'd think. There's things like the Couch to 5K program and stuff like that. Kind of generic, but a starting point if you don't have someone to give you more specific advice on how to grade that.
Would you do any foot exercises or any things to get if they've had particularly if they're a fairly sedentary person, would you or would just the gradual exposure to the stimulus be enough to?
Yeah, I'm without seeing someone and seeing their feet, I would just say I wouldn't just throw extra things at them, just as I know personally I'm so busy with life and everything. With specific foot stuff, I would say just the graded exposure to running as a starting point would be enough, because the feet will get stronger. The feet will get stronger even if they are in a stability issue or something like that. Going from not running to running, it's still going to work their feet, their tendons more than not running. So.
And which ties perfectly into Yanni's comment here saying, surprise, load management is key, because it is the message we keep hammering in. Yeah. So love it. Just the last thing I want to say before we wrap up, actually we'll say Andy Lawson said, my dad used to always get at me for I wasn't striding out enough, and he thought being taller I should use my long legs to get my advantage. Yeah. Never felt right though.
Classic. Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
Great.
Dad wasn't right.
Sorry. Dad, you're not always right. Yeah. Perfect.
Love it.
Just one part of your running that I love is that you still do parkrun.
Yeah.
And so for those, parkrun is a 5K. It's always 5K, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Always 5.
And it's all over the world. So everywhere in the world, there'll be parkruns that are run by volunteers who are just keen bean runners and community people who just love the Saturday morning sort of experience. And so, and yeah, that's how you met your wife.
That's right. Yeah. So
Oh,
I met her at a
love
park
it.
run. So
Yeah. And
So, yeah.
yeah, I think it's just such a nice example of like how much kind of community becomes a part of exercise. And that's what, we love to talk about here is like the only way to build like a great exercise habit is by building in other aspects to it that fulfill your life, and having, going and volunteering in park run and watching, Tom's wife is not a professional runner. She's just like an, enthusiastic. She's doing some, she's getting there. I've been watching on the Instagram stories. It's going really well. But it's so nice to have have those using your passion, but also in like a community sense where you can build relationships and get out there. So
it's a great. Hopefully, it starts again soon. With it's been shut down since COVID, but anyone that's starts to get into running and can get to a point where they can run comfortably at 5K, or even if they're still running.
People walk.
Exactly. Even if you're still walking, it's just a very what's the word? It's
seems really inclusive. Just
inclusive. It's just.
And often when you are starting a new habit, like having something like a set time that you have to turn up, and you can progress every week. Like, I think it's just such a nice idea for anyone who is enthusiastic about getting into running. Like, I'd start with getting some park run. That way you can build a community. You can meet some people who, if they want to, you do your 5K run on the Saturday, and then you might find someone who's willing to do like let's start trying some intervals. Like that's the kind of place you meet people, and because running can be a fairly lonely sport, I imagine, if you're not part of a training group or a team or a club.
Yeah.
So I think for the people out there who want to get into it, when COVID obviously allows it, that seems like a really nice way to do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Sure. Well, I feel like I could talk all day, but other people probably would like to get on with the day. So
thanks for coming on, Tom. That was
Thanks
really
for having
good,
me.
really insightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. I hope our audience got a lot out of that, because it is not often that we have someone with Tom's experience and passion.
And skin in the game.
Yeah, and skin in the game.
Love
Yeah,
that
so
skin.
good stuff. Look,
No, I
You have to come
appreciate
back
it.
sometime.
Thanks.
Like if we, keep getting
for
so,
sure.
so keep putting in your running questions, and
when they
Tom's
build
just-
up, we'll
Tom's just
we'll
around
get
the corner,
Tom back
so
on
we'll
again.
get
Yeah.
him in.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and
No,
if
I'm
anyone's
keen.
in the Sydney area and has any issues, where can they find you, Tom? How can they?
My
and
clinic's Walker Street Sports Podiatry. It's it's on Walker Street in North Sydney.
Yep.
So
nice
they
and
can,
close to the train station.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, you can book online or call up.
And
pretty
telehealth
easy.
via Walker
and
Street.
telehealth. Yeah.
Walker Street Sports Podiatry or Tom Do Canto. We'll put the links in both the Facebook comments, and also I'll make sure to do it on the podcast notes as well.
Yeah.
So
Yanni's saying come back again, Tom. I think
Thanks,
Yanni's
Yanni.
really feeling some FOMO here.
Definite FOMO.
I can see. Yanni's asking more questions than everybody else. Yanni's saying website. What's the website?
I'll type it in right now.
Oh, so Phil's going to type it in. Right,
Well,
cool.
Thanks.
Well, for the Spotify though,
It's just it's a long one. It is just Walker Street Sports Podiatry.
Okay. Walker Street.
.com.au.
yeah, and
Sports
up in the
Podiatry.
in the podcast, not the podiatrist, I'll put it in the show notes, so
Okay.
you'll definitely be able to find it.
Sweet.
Cool. Thanks, Tom.
Thank
All
you.
right, yeah,
Great
thanks,
chat.
mate.
And we'll see you again.
Have a great day, everyone. See you next time.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's the
far.
consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.